Welcome to the March 3rd, 2022 special meeting of the Human Services Advisory Board. I am calling the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. Thank you for attending, and we'll go ahead and do roll call. Joanne is here. Mary Earls. Can y'all say here too? Okay. Monica Gonzalez. Alfreda Lee.
Here.
Melina.
Here.
Gloria.
Here.
And our new member, Arlene Castro.
Here.
Okay, we have 6 out of 7 voting members in attendance. We have a quorum. Staff, is anyone present in person, online, or by phone to speak during the citizen comment period?
Yes, and I would need to move her over to be a panelist, so just give us
Okay.
a second.
And does she know she has 3 minutes?
I believe so. So Ms. Capoletta, you're up and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, do I need to keep my own time before we start? Are you keeping the time?
I'll keep it. I'll
Okay.
watch.
Okay, so here, let me just go ahead and start my, hold on, let me just redo this. Let me get a recording up and I'll do it that way. Good evening. My name is Professor Lisa Marie Capoletta. They call me LMC, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm a little concerned about, can you not hear me? Okay, can you hear me now? I try to be
That's
like
better.
all soft-spoken like the governor of Dakota, but then people think I'm ranting and raving. I'm having to speak up. I'm a real fan of hers. Good evening. My name is Professor Lisa Marie Capoletta. They call me LMC. I'm here to talk tonight about my concerns with your last round of awarding of money. And behind me, you can see a bar graph of how that broke down. And my concerns are that I don't think this board understands how things work in this town. We had a charter review commission that issued a variety of recommendations that were overturned and changed and manipulated by the city council. And that was the first time in the history of our community where those recommendations were changed. And they didn't call people racist. Then we had a situation where last year, pretty much every CUP that the P&Z passed was overturned by the city council and nobody complained. And yet with this board, suddenly we have letters that you guys have seen the letters. You can go to the San Marcos Corridor News. There's 2 articles, one on December 15th. City council decides to give PALS $20,000, receives complaints claiming their decision appears racist. The second article is on January 4th at the San Marcos Corridor News entitled Exclusive. San Marcos City Council caves in after pressure from city's advisory board that accused the council of being racist. My concern is first that you guys don't understand how city politics works. You don't have the final say. Secondly, there is no documented track record of some of these organizations, and many of them are for out of town. And yet you're not awarding money to organizations that do have a track record. And some of you are calling each other privately lobbying, which means that that advocacy that you made was not on camera. It was not transparent. And we as the public, and there's a lot of money at stake, and there's some people that left out with a really good track record that is not on public record. The other concern I have is that some of you guys are not on camera and you should be on camera, and that you're getting letters written from the very people who are going to be awarded money. That's problematic. I would like to see people support the organization because, I mean, would you write a letter of recommendation for yourself for a job? Would that be acceptable? And that's pretty much what you did. Additionally, I think some of you need to recuse yourself because if you're a member of the church or you're friends with the church or you have a track history of the church, you should have recused yourself. And some of you are way on the razor's edge of an ethics violation of lobbying. So I would consider that you guys follow the rules of protocol. And I'm very disappointed that you did not award money to organizations that have a track record. Some of these organizations are churches that didn't get money, but you gave them to a different church and they had no documentation, and you're bending rules because they didn't have the IRS information. Thank you for your time. I believe I'm out of time to the city staff, and I always follow my time. Thank you for your time, and God bless San Marcos. And I'll hang around for questions from the press and public. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now consider approval by motion of the February 22nd, 2022 meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, sure. I can't get my video to work. I'm working on it. I'm somewhere else and it's just not working. I'm working on it.
Okay, we had a motion by Gloria. Do I hear a second? And that's to approve the last minutes for the committee.
I second.
Okay, Alfreda. Does the board have any discussion or corrections regarding the minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say nay. The motion to carry approved. The next action item is to discuss and take actions on resolution 2022-01R to create rules and regulations for the Human Services Advisory Board. At this point, the board will continue the discussion of the proposed rules and regulations for the board. I will turn the floor over to Carol Griffin, Housing and Community Development Manager, to facilitate the discussion.
Okay, I thought what I would do is just go section by section.
Carol, the volume is really low. I wonder if it's me or, hold on, let me check. Because I'm not able, no, this is at 100%. It's just really low, but
Check,
I'll keep my
is
ear
that-
close.
Okay, is that better? I switched microphones. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay, okay. I thought what I would do is go section by section. All of you received a red line in your packet that was trying to show what we had discussed last time and the comments received in the meantime as well from board members. So this red line shows the sections that are under discussion. So what you have in your packet is the red line of the rules and regulations of the Human Services Advisory Board. And I thought I would just go to the sections that have red lines in them. Any parts of it, of this document, are available for discussion by y'all. So what you're doing right now is just reviewing this document and deciding what you want it to contain as a board. So I'll just start with the membership section. We deleted, as part of the role of voting members, we deleted perform site visits as required. As the role of the non-voting member, we deleted assist with record keeping, because that's really done by staff. And then the board discussed last week having more of a definition for the role of the non-voting member. And so I have put the notes from last week's meeting into this document as guidance for what should be contained in the presentation done by the non-voting member. So prior to the commencement of the application review process, the non-voting member will present to the board a brief overview of the following, and it'll be social work core values, the National Association of Social Work Code of Ethics, best practices in the field related to service delivery, evidence-based models, outputs versus outcomes, industry standards regarding grant applications and funding, and a summary of the process of applying for grants. So those were the suggestions I had received from Megan in an email, and then also what was discussed in last week's meeting. And so I combined those because we had given the board the opportunity to provide suggestions. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any discussion on the membership section. Okay, so it sounds like there isn't, and we will continue on. There were no other changes there to the staff liaison section or the board records section. And so on the meetings and rules of conduct section, part 1, we changed the sentence to be, instead of having it say, the regular meetings of the Human Services Advisory Board shall be on the second Tuesday of each month at 5:30. We changed it to say, the regular meetings of the Human Services Advisory Board will be set by the board by approval of the annual calendar. And so we will be approving, I always say we because I think we're a team, but I mean the board will be discussing the annual calendar tonight and approving that if you see, like what you see. So That I believe is the only change to that section. Do we have any discussion on the meetings or the rules of conduct section? Okay, we'll keep going, but just let me know if I need to stop. Under Human Services Agency definition, we've added the word nonprofit. So it would now read, a human services agency is a nonprofit organization that seeks to improve the quality, and then it keeps going in the typical definition that we've had. I did also provide this handout about nonprofits and who can receive grant funding and so forth. So I wondered if there's any discussion on the Human Services Agency definition. So I'll keep going. Funding application process. So on this section, we made several changes. Funding applications, for one thing, it had stated dates specifically in these rules and regulations, and we changed that to funding applications are available to the agencies according to the calendar adopted annually by the board. And that gives y'all the flexibility to set the calendar annually. We crossed out the items that relate to hand delivery or certified mail of paper applications because we would really prefer to have electronic applications. And we added the statement, only applications that meet all eligibility criteria throughout the process will be considered for funding. And I think the thought there was that it would provide some clarity that if you enter into the process and then lose your nonprofit status part of the way through, this just really explicitly states you therefore are not qualified for funding.
Thank you. I appreciate that part.
So, yeah, so that was clear from what the board had said. In the next part, we once again changed things that had to do with paper notification letters and just made it electronic communication. And then in the last sentence of that section, it says, after the appeals process is closed, the HSAB will proceed to discussion and determination of funding amounts for each agency, eventually rendering the final recommendation to the city council. So I just changed a letter of recommendation to say the final recommendation to city council. So this section had to do with the funding application process and then an appeals process. If an agency is not funded, this talks about how they can appeal to the board in the middle of the process. So is there any discussion over this process, this section?
So the appeal process, I'm sorry, go ahead, Melina, I'm sorry. Or whoever.
Sorry, okay. I had a question. I saw that we changed when the applications are going to be available. Have we decided when we're going to make them available this year to the agencies?
That's on the agenda tonight. So we'll discuss the calendar tonight. Yep.
The appeal process, is it clarified in here? Am I missing something? After our decision is made and the agency is not happy with the decision for whatever reason, when can they make an appeal process like at that time before, I don't know how it was done the last time. I know our decision would go to the city council and then they would make the appeal process at that time. And at one time they gave them funds from, not from our source, but from somewhere else. So I know we probably can't get into that, but when will the appeal process take place?
So I think that's a really good point because in this document, which is remembered, it's your old bylaws that had a lot of regulations and rules in it, and we're using it as your rules and regulations document. It doesn't really, I don't think it really clearly says when the appeal process has to happen, but what is supposed to happen is that, and like I can tell from the wording here, what's supposed to happen is the board issues a preliminary recommendation of who's going to get funding. And then the agencies have time, so it would be like a gap of a week or something to, did your lights just go out? Sorry, they would have a gap during which they could make an appeal. And then y'all would need to resolve the appeal, make a decision before you make the final recommendation to council. So I actually think that's going to impact our calendar a little bit. And then also, it seems like maybe that's something that should be clarified in here, like exactly when that process would happen.
So we would be a part of the appeal process. We've never been a part of it before. That's never, usually, I think the last time is when I first got on the board, someone made an appeal and the city council just took care of it. Excuse me. The city council just took care of it and then told us that they were going to go ahead and give them money from some other source. So I didn't know, is it supposed to work differently?
I don't know of anything in, I know there's nothing in the standard bylaws or anything that I know of that says the council is supposed to handle the appeals. This is just your board rules and regulations.
Okay.
So it doesn't govern what the council can and cannot do, but it does what has always been in here since 2007 is that appeals would go to the Human Services Advisory Board
We've never.
first.
Okay.
So that's
A
interesting.
first for me since I've been on the board, but since I've been on the board on and off, I've only been through one appeals process and last year wasn't an appeals, but I've only been through one official appeals process where they just thought that we should have given them more money, not just giving them money.
What I would recommend is that we put some time limits in the appeal process. So it says, so section 3A, once the agency presentations to the HSAB have been concluded, members will then conduct a preliminary fund, no fund vote. So that's where y'all would be making your preliminary slate of recommendations. Electronic, so, and here's something different than what we did last year. Electronic communication will be sent to agencies after the vote to explain whether the agency addressed will or will not be recommended by the board to the city council for funding. So what that's saying is y'all would make a preliminary vote and then we, the staff, would send out to all the agencies that had applied the list of here's the preliminary recommendation. Upon receiving the Human Services Advisory Board recommendation notice, the applicant may then write a letter of appeal, which is to be sent to the HSAB liaison, which is me, by the appeals deadline date stated in the notice. So the notice is where we would have to tell them you have a week to get your appeal in. So maybe that takes care of my concern because that we can certainly put a time limit in here if we want to, or we can just leave it like that. But the notice would state you have until X date to turn in your appeal.
I think we should put a time limit in there.
Okay.
Whatever
What
the
would you
board comes up with.
suggest?
You
Okay.
saying a week, I think that's good. There, you know, the hard part, the application and all that, it's already in. The only thing that they're doing is appealing usually the amount. So I think to give them 7 calendar days or 5 calendar days or something, I think that's perfect. What does the rest of the board think? Arlene, what do you think?
I mean, I would think that would be a substantial amount of time if it's just a small thing that they're requesting. It's not like any additional work from them or researching, or it's just to say they are requesting an appeal. Seems fair. I would probably stick to business days.
And then do we have a time limit to get back in touch with them as to, see, I don't know how this process works because we've never done it before. Like I said, the first appeal that I had, the city council just took care of it. So do we have a certain time to get back in touch with them and let them know what the decision is, or?
So we need to probably add a time limit in here, because what I'm picturing is y'all issue your preliminary recommendation. We get the email out the next day. They have a certain number of days to get an appeal in. And so we would have a gap week where between your preliminary recommendation and your final recommendation, we would give them a gap week to get their appeal in. And then you would meet that second week and hear any appeals and make your final recommendations. Because, you know, it took several meetings to really get to that final decision. And so you could still have a couple of meetings to discuss preliminary recommendation and then final recommendation. And in the middle happens the appeal process. So then if there's any discussion, let me know. Wording that would be typical. Let's think it through. The meetings, most likely, like the recommendation is that they'll be on a Thursday. We would be sending out the notice on a Friday. Here's the recommendation list. They could have until the following Friday to get the appeal back in. So that would be, let's say, 5 business days. So we would add to this sentence. So 3B, it would say, upon receiving the HSAB recommendation notice, the applicant may then write in a letter of appeal, which is to be sent to the HSAB liaison by the appeals deadline date stated in the notice, which will be no fewer than 5 business days.
Carol, I was just thinking about what you guys were saying, listening to you and Joanne and Ms. Kesher. I think we need to give them a little bit more time. I think we need to give them at least 10 working days. If you have a new agency's not familiar with, you know, the whole process, I think it would be fair to allow them a little bit more time. Some people want to seek counsel, you know, they want to talk to people about it. The young lady who was on earlier, I was listening very closely to what she said. And so we want to make sure that we are giving them adequate time to, I don't want to use the word challenge, but to reassess the application and our process. So I would like to recommend that we give them just a little bit more time. Joanne, you want to think about that for a minute so that we are showing that we are wanting them to have the opportunity to clearly come back to us with all the information that they have to support the appeal and not feel like they were pressured. You know, we have no idea what they're going to need to do in that appeal process as they come back to us.
It doesn't matter.
So I'd like to just make that recommendation.
I think it should be longer. Sorry about the no video. Maybe I could exit and come back in again and it might correct. I don't know what the problem is.
Okay.
Are you on board with that?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, Gloria.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll try that.
Okay. So
Just saying,
Gloria
I think,
was thinking that it should be longer.
yeah, I think so. I think 10 working days at least, you know,
Okay.
I think.
Melina, what do you think?
As long as we give them enough time, I
Mhm.
think 5 days is enough. But if you guys want to give them 10, then that's more than enough. They should come with a really good appeal.
No, right. Arlene, what do you think? The 5, 7, 10?
I mean, whatever. It seems like it's just a request stating they're wanting an appeal. So they're not presenting all their evidence at that time, correct? Like they're just stating this is what the intent is to do. So I don't know how much, or are they?
I don't know, Arlene. That's what I'm saying. I've never been through this process before. So Carol, are they presenting, I'm sorry, thought I had it turned off. Are they presenting the appeal as far as the whole appeal process, or is it just a documentation that they're turning in?
So
within
it
the-
would need to be like, they would need to be presenting their whole case, because it'll go into y'all's packet in preparation for a meeting so that you can have it before the meeting. We could also, you could invite them to speak at the meeting or something like that as well. But I would think would want to see their whole argument and
Okay.
reasoning in your packet.
Alfredo, what are you thinking?
Initially, I was thinking maybe 7 business days, but if we're going to be getting additional material to go over, maybe the 10 business days would be better for us and for the agencies.
3.2 days.
Okay. So I'm hearing 10 business days. Is that kind of a consensus? It's looking like.
It doesn't matter to me.
Any comments?
Whichever you
Okay.
want. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna make a big difference, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. And we can look
No,
and see, we can make sure that it impacts the calendar
I'm
properly.
sorry,
We'll get it on-
what did you say? Joanne, I couldn't hear you.
I don't think it's gonna make a big difference if they're going to have like either the business days, 5 business days, 7 business days. I understand you wanted to give them more time. I'm okay with that. It really didn't matter.
No, I was just saying that because, I haven't, I think you went through one, but we haven't, and given, I think kind of the culture and the understanding of what we're doing here, I think I just want to play it safe
Yeah,
and give them all the time that they need so we don't have any
issues like we had.
any comeback saying that we forced anybody or we hurried anyone. And,
I
you
understand.
always want to give people all the time, as much time as you can, if you can, to
Right.
present everything they need to present. Since
And
it's
you're
a,
saying 10 business days. I'm sorry, it's echoing. I'm not talking over you. I'm not really hearing. So I apologize. I'm getting a delay. So that's why you're saying 10. So is everybody okay so that we won't spend too much time on this? Is everybody okay with 10 working days so that we can give them enough time to make a appeal process that like everybody be satisfied with? No hurries, no rush. Okay, good.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other discussion on that funding application process section? So
And
then
then
I'll keep,
for us to
oh,
get
go
back,
ahead.
for us to get back with them, do we have a time as well?
On the next paragraph, it says, the HSAB liaison will in turn distribute the agency appeal letters to the board members via email for individual review. Members will assemble at the next scheduled meeting prepared to review, discuss, and vote on whether or not to accept the appeal or allow the previous decision to stand.
Okay,
So I feel like that gives y'all a time limit of, and we'll look at it on the calendar and make sure that we have it where if we are giving 10 business days, then we've got our meetings set on the calendar accordingly,
okay.
so, yeah. Anything else?
Well, doesn't it still have to state that we have so much time to get back with them on that appeal? I mean, shouldn't
Well,
there be like a number there, like we're giving them a number? Don't they expect a number?
Well, I felt like it did. Let me read you that paragraph and see if we need to make it more clear, because what I'm understanding from this paragraph is that y'all would vote at your next scheduled meeting. So what it says is the HSAB liaison will in turn distribute the agency appeal letter to the board members via email for individual review. Members will assemble at the next scheduled meeting prepared to review, discuss, and vote on whether or not to accept the appeal or to allow the previous decision to stand. Do we need to clarify that to make sure it's saying
Yeah,
It's
I
at
think it
that
should be in
meeting.
plainer language. It should be in plainer language,
The
I
next
think.
scheduled business meeting.
So maybe we could add a sentence that just says, the board, something to the effect of the board will make a decision on the appeal at that meeting.
Within a week of,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like the next
Yeah, yeah,
scheduled
yeah.
meeting could be longer. So,
Yeah, who knows, right? You know, I think they want a number. They deserve a number. They made an appeal. They deserve a number.
well, the thing is that the board can't make a decision except at a meeting.
Okay.
So we could say the board will hold a meeting within a week of reviewing, within a week of receiving the appeal.
Okay, I mean, that's a number, but it might be an unscheduled time frame. I don't know. But how many appeals do you anticipate?
One,
Just one? Just one?
that's my
Really?
guess. That's my guess. Yeah. That's
Oh,
just
I
a
don't know.
guess. I don't know.
Right.
But, okay, so we could say the board will hold a meeting within a week of receiving an appeal.
Okay,
Yeah, and I'm throwing that out as the time amount.
or
The,
we could get the same amount of time, 10 business days. You know?
well, I think that you don't, the thing that I'm seeing is in the calendar, you may not have that much time because the meetings to go over the applications lasted 6 weeks, or they did last time. And then we had an off week. I'm looking at the calendar. We have like an off week where the staff is assembling all the materials and getting them to you to review in preparation for the discussion week. It took us 2 discussion weeks to get to a preliminary list. And so then they would have 10 days to appeal after that. And then y'all have got to meet to make your final list, and we've got to get it to council in December. So we can look at the dates. Maybe we should go ahead and look at them very specifically right now, actually. So why don't we bring up a calendar? I don't know. Would that be helpful?
Gloria, would that be helpful?
Really help I don't have a blank calendar, but I can bring up my calendar and just
I'm
go
not
to,
sure how useful that would be, but.
okay, well then save me the embarrassment of showing my calendar on public view.
You know, I think
So-
we're gonna get a speedier processing this. I mean, last year was the first year that we had, you know, all these additional people asking for, you know, money. And, you know, the whole rating process and, you know, so I don't know if that comes into play or not. I mean, if you anticipate just one or maybe 2, even 3 appeals, you know.
well,
I'm
and
not sure.
really we could go ahead and say the board will hold a meeting within 10 business days of receiving an appeal. And then if we're squished for time, we can hold the meeting sooner. And if we have
Yeah.
enough time, we could hold it later. So that,
Especially if
that's
it's
not
only
harmful.
addressing that appeal. If we don't have to go through this whole process and there, it needs to be, an appeal needs to be addressed. Because obviously there's some, you know, focus on this issue. So I would want to be very clear about the language, and I'm not sure you can pick a date, a specific date when we meet. If you're saying, okay, you've got 10 working days for the appeal, and then we are in turn will respond within a certain length of time. I'm not sure you can pinpoint that date I think it would be problematic. I'm just saying maybe in this particular area, we should be a little more flexible about that.
Okay, so then I
Like,
have,
practical.
sorry,
Am I being too
So then-
practical? Or?
let me read you what I have and y'all can see what you think. So we're in section 3C. The HSAB liaison will in turn distribute the agency appeal letters to the board members via email for individual review. Then I've added a sentence. The board will hold a meeting within 10 business days of receiving an appeal. And then it keeps going with the language. Members will assemble at the next meeting to prepare to discuss and vote.
I like it. I think we can make it happen. I like it. I don't think it's going to be work intensive.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, it's a note of contention. It's a area of concern. We should say that this is how we're going to address this particular issue.
Mm-hmm. No, that sounds good. I think I do like having it more specific than less. So I think we've got it. Is there any other discussion?
I have a quick question. So would it be possible that we would be having more than one meeting if one agency filed like the first week and then a different agency filed like the second week? Like someone filed on the first day and then someone filed on the 9th day? Would it be possible we'd be having more than one meeting to address appeals?
I don't think so, because what we'll do is set a date certain by when they have to have their appeal in. I think that's a good question, but the practical way that we would try to work it is to make sure that we have a date certain in the letter that's no fewer than 10 business days after they get the list. And then we would wait until that date
Yeah.
before we schedule the next meeting so that we know we've got everybody in.
It's within that time frame. We could do it earlier, you know, certainly I think you would know. I think you would know pretty soon if somebody's making an appeal and how many somebody's would be making an appeal. So
Mhm.
that, you know, you're not going to know exactly how to handle it until it goes down. But I think within that time frame, and I don't think it's going to be staggered. So you're having a meeting, more frequent than what's necessary.
Mhm.
I think you're going to know just how much time you're going to need and how many appeals it's going to be.
I think we gave them a deadline to appeal after the decision's been made. Then if we have 1, 2, 3 appeals, we'll have them all by that deadline and we'll know exactly
Mhm.
how many we have. And it
Oh,
won't be
that's good. I
stagnated
like that
anymore.
one. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. There's your date right there. I like
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion on that section? So we'll go on to the next part. And this, I put in here just really for y'all's discussion. So for example, we've got a couple of possible new sections if you would like to vote on them as a board. Here's your alternative. If you don't want to include these in your rules and regulations, then it would just be staff practice. Staff would come up with how we review the scores and so forth. How we did it last year. What I've done is written down basically how we looked at the scores last year as staff and tried to assemble them into a format where you could vote on them and discuss them. I am wondering if you want to put that into your rules and regulations so that it's set and there's not a deviation allowed, or if you want to leave it fluid so that if new staff come on or they have a better idea, then it could be done differently. So what this section 4, which is a proposed new section for discussion, talks about is when all of the scores are received from the board members, staff will then do what I did last year, which was to look at how each board member is scoring, what their average low score is, what their average medium score is, and what their average high score is, so that, and then label their scores as low, medium, or high as a way of normalizing the scoring. So for example, last year we had one board member that tended to score very high. Everything was, every agency got within 10 points of each other. We had other board members who scored all the way across the range. So their low scores were very low, and then their medium were in the medium range, and so forth. They used the whole 100 points, in other words. So we didn't want it to, we couldn't just average the scores as numbers, because, for example, one board member had scored everybody in the 90s. Well, it makes it look like they thought that everybody was equally high, when really they just had a kind of a limited range of their low, medium, and high. So instead I made like their low 90s be the low scores, and the mediums be in the mid 90s, and then the highs be in the high 90s. And so by labeling low, medium, and high for each board member, that way we could get that chart where we could see across the board, like, okay, here's all the low scores, they're pink. Here's all the medium scores, they're yellow. Here's all the high scores, they're green. And we could see which agencies had scored high across the board and which ones were mixed, and so forth. Now, that is what I have tried to describe in this section. Do you want to make it part of your rules and regulations, or do you want to kind of leave it for staff discretion on how we do the scoring?
I say leave it open.
Leave it open. What's that mean? Leave it open.
Well-
Don't set it in stone. I like how you did it last year. I thought it worked very well. It was my first year, so I don't have much to compare it to, but I think if somebody had another idea, we should be open to change it easier than having, because what we'd have to do this over again, right? If we set it
Right.
in stone. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay, I'm with you on that.
I agree.
I mean, your technique is one, and it's no, you know, it seems the most logical right now. So I'm up for leaving it open if we have a better, more clarity using some other method, but I don't have a problem with what you came up with. It sounds logical, and I like logic.
Arlene, Mary, and Alfredo, what do you think? That
I
we
was
should leave it open or make it part of?
Yeah,
I
I
was
agree with Melina to leave it open.
I agree.
Arlene?
I was just reading through the evaluation criteria and how it looks. It does seem to be kind of fair, so it should be open.
Okay. So Carol, I guess that we'll leave it open.
Okay, and got it. That's great. And then just to be clear, so that was about the scoring. Do you also want to sort of leave outside of the rules and regulations the funding requirements? So that's in the next section. So let's just look at that one specifically. This section was taken from the application. This is what we try to emphasize in the application. And it's things like proof of expenditures are going to be required. The funding requested cannot be more than 50% of the funding for the program overall. The program must have measurable outcomes. It's that sort of thing. Now, right now, this just shows up in the application, and we could leave it that way. The difference is, and y'all have pinpointed it really well, if we put these things in the rules and regulations, it would take another meeting of the board and another discussion in order to change it. If we don't, staff has a little more discretion. We'll leave it in the application unless we figure out something better or we figure out a little bit different wording and that sort of thing.
I think we should leave this one open as well. I like that it is a part of their application.
Any other discussion on that one?
May I just ask a general question?
Sure.
So I see where it says it's provides services to residents of San Marcos. So does that depend on the county that San Marcos sits in, or is it just within city limits? Like, how does that normally look?
So what we're trying to say with that one is you have to provide services to people who live within the city limits of San Marcos. You can also provide services to people outside San Marcos, like in Hayes County or whatever. But we won't fund, the board will not fund a program that only serves residents in Kyle, for example, or whatever, that only serves residents that are in the county and not in San Marcos.
Okay, I guess my question was like, for the areas of San Marcos that are covered in Caldwell County or Guadalupe County, how is that
Mhm.
addressed? Or they're just not?
Yeah. So they're in the city limits. And so
Okay.
therefore that would qualify.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So Arlene, are you wanting to leave that open?
I believe that would be fair.
I think so. What about Alfreda, Melina, Mary, Gloria?
It's fine.
Yes, leave it open.
Okay.
Okay, and then not to beat a dead horse, but in danger of doing that, I also had included the evaluation criteria and the risk assessment criteria. And I'm thinking that y'all will probably just want to leave that sort of open and available for change in the future as well. Is that correct?
I would say yes, because it's so new and this is our second year. And I know that we're gonna come up with some type of modifications once this year is up and we have another meeting, like what did we do wrong? What do we do right? Or what do we want to change? So I say we leave
Okay.
it open for that reason.
Okay, is there any other discussion on
Anybody
that?
else?
No, we should leave it open because there's going to be some questions about the rating criteria in the future. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
We already decided that we were gonna add the fifth assessment, right, on one of them about their history.
Yes.
So does that mean, or we have to talk about it again? I guess
know,
that's my
right?
question.
No, what we did last year was staff came up with this and we talked briefly with the chair and co-chair about like, hey, we're about to put this into place. Does it seem, reasonable and so forth? Really brief discussion. So this year, since last year we noted for everybody on the application, this is coming next year and it's going to be recipient history. We'll just go ahead and add it to the application this year. Yeah.
That sounds good. Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so that's all that we had proposed for these rules and regulations. So my last question, and then I'll turn it back over to Joanne, is are there any other sections or statements that y'all want to be sure and include in your rules and regulations document that we should have a discussion on? So it
I don't
sounds like none. So I'm going to turn the floor back over to Joanne, and thank you all very much for your input on these rules and regulations.
Okay. And so will I make a motion and a second then, discussions, and then are we
So you'll
voting
need to
on this? Okay, okay.
Yes, request a motion and a second.
Okay, can I make a motion and a second regarding this recommendation of the modifications that we've made to the rules, regulations of the Human Services Advisory Board of the City of San Marcos? And then motion made by,
Me, Quinn,
okay. And second by,
A second.
okay, Alfreda. Is there any discussion, or do we need to have any further discussions on this? We will now have a roll call for vote. Carol, you can, will you please call the roll?
Okay, Joanne,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Alfreda,
Yes.
Melina, oh, I can read her lips. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Gloria. Okay, there she is. Gloria.
Yes, you can't read my lips, but yes.
No. Okay. Thank you. And then Arlene.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Joanne, are you still with us?
I'm just reading, okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
you were on mute. Okay.
Yeah, the next action item is to discuss and take action on resolution 2022-02R to approve the 2022 calendar for the Human Services Grant application process. We will now receive a staff recommendation from Carol Griffith, Housing and Community Development Manager, on approving the annual calendar. I'll turn the floor over to Carol.
Okay, I'll keep this really brief. In your packet, you had, and this is in your original packet, you have a calendar that has some blue striping on it. This calendar proposes that this kind of gives you a lot of the details, but basically we would have a public notice on May 22nd that there is going to be a public hearing on June 9th. And then, so the board would meet on June 9th to have a public hearing. This is required by the ordinance that set up the board originally. And the purpose of the hearing is to receive input on how agency funding should be allocated and just general comments on the process. And so then we would place a display ad in the newspapers June 19th and so forth. I believe that we decided not to have a courtesy notice, and so I've got to take that off the calendar.
Yeah, we did.
Let me make a note of that for myself. No courtesy notice. So then the application process would begin June 24th and it would last through July 29th. This gives staff a little bit of time in between when the application process ends at the very end of July until when the board orientation begins in the very first part of September, to work with the agencies to make sure that all the applications are complete. So that would prevent us from giving you like board book addendums and here's some more stuff that came in and that sort of thing. So we would distribute the board books at the very end of August with complete and eligible applications, and y'all would have some time between that time and your first meeting to start looking through things. We would have a board orientation on September 1st, including discussing, you know, the process for scoring and so forth. And then we would start having the presentation meetings. And so we would have 4 in September and 2 in October. We would have the scores due from all board members on October 14th. And then that's when staff would take a week to compile them into our sort of low, medium, high chart and everything and get them back out to you in a packet so that you could review them. And then we would have a meeting on October 27th so that y'all could discuss the scoring and really get down to who's going to be funded and who shouldn't be and so forth. Right now, we also have a second meeting on the calendar as sort of a final discussion meeting. What we don't have on this calendar that we're going to need to put there this evening is that 10-day gap. So let's look at it. So November, I think it would be good to have 2 discussion meetings. So October 27th and November 3rd. Then you could have a 10-day gap for the appeals process. And that would put your next meeting, let me look at a calendar. Oh, let me look at a calendar real quick. And I'm trying to get you specific dates so that we can vote on this calendar today. Sorry. Okay, so November 3rd would be the discussion meeting. And then 10-day gap would put your next meeting at November 24th, which is Thanksgiving. So that's where we run into an issue. I think that we are going to have to back the process up based on your decisions this evening. I think we'll need to start in August instead of in September. And so we're going to have to make some modifications to this calendar sort of as we're talking here so that you can then vote on it tonight. So what I would say is we could just move everything back 2 weeks. So everything starts, like board orientation would be in mid-August. Instead of being on September 1st, it would be on August 18th. Board orientation. And then this whole calendar would move back 2 weeks. And so your final discussion meeting, instead of being on the 3rd of November, would be on October 20th. Then we would have that 10-day lapse for the appeal. And your next meeting would be on November 10th. That should work just fine. November 10th would be a final meeting, final discussion meeting. And I'm sorry we didn't have this in here already. I just didn't realize that the appeals process would change the calendar so much. So November 10th would be your final discussion. And that would give us enough time to get on the council agenda for the first meeting in December, which would be December 6th. Or if we had to, we could, like, depending on how things go or whatever, that would give us a flexible date to get on the council meeting for December 20th, if it had to go that way. Does anybody have any questions? Because I know we're kind of making some changes on the fly here.
I'm not about to take issue with any of those dates that you just somehow managed to keep track of.
I am really used to dealing with timelines.
Right,
but
yeah, I'm good with it, lady.
main thing is what we're looking at is on this calendar, we're moving everything back 2 weeks and we're inserting a 10-day period for that appeals process.
Sure.
Yeah, this works because of the 2-week appeals process. So I don't have a problem with
Okay.
it. Does anyone else?
Okay.
No, but didn't you say that the public hearing was on 9 June and yet in the calendar it says 7 June?
Originally, I distributed a calendar that had Tuesday meeting dates, and then we realized, and actually I was really told that we really need to be meeting on Thursday because I have to be available to present to city council as part of my job. And also other boards and commissions don't typically schedule on Tuesdays for that reason, in case the city council members want to observe your meeting or, you know, just because the city council meets on Tuesdays.
No, that's
So
fine.
those-
I
those
just
were
wanted
our
to make
reasons.
sure I was clear on that.
Yeah, so you may be looking at the original one, which had green on it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so just move everything 2 days up, and June 9th is a Thursday.
Got it.
So then if there's no discussion, I'll turn let me put it this way. I'll turn the floor back over to Joanne. Y'all can discuss as much as you want. I'm here to answer questions, and we will
Can
need
I
to
ask a
have
question real
a
quick?
vote. Sure,
Can I ask
absolutely.
a question? When is the application going to be available to the public?
So then we would be moving things, let's see, oh, we won't be moving the application process. So application process, it would be available to the public June 24th and due on July 29th.
And when do they have access to it? Can they go look it up right now? Or do they not have access to it until the 24th or whatever day they can start submitting it?
We usually post it on the internet on the Friday before. So let's see, June 24th, is a Friday. So we would post it, we would post it on the 23rd just to make sure that it was accessible all day on the 24th is what we would usually do.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay. You want me to go ahead? Can I get a motion and a second regarding this recommendation to approve all the modifications on the calendar for the Human Services Advisory Board? Motion made by, and this is to approve the calendar and all the changes that's been made. So a
I
motion. Okay, who is it?
Me, Quinn.
Okay, Gloria. And second?
Second the calendar.
Okay, okay. Is there any further discussion?
Not for this.
Then we'll have a roll call vote by Carol.
Okay, and this time we'll start with Mary,
Yes.
Alfreda,
Yes.
Melina,
Yes.
Gloria,
Yes.
Arlene,
Yes.
and Joanne.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The next action item to discuss and take action on resolution 2022-03R to elect the chair and vice chair of the Human Services Advisory Board. Since this is our first board meeting of the year after March 1st start date for new members, this evening we were required to elect the chair and vice chair of the board. You can feel free to nominate yourself or anyone else for this position. We will elect the chair first and then the vice chair. Do you have any recommendations for the chair position?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Joanne. You mind repeating it?
Do you have any recommendation for the chair position? You can keep it the same, or you can nominate someone else to take my position.
Well, I know Joanne loves what she does, so I am going to nominate her again to remain in her position. And can I make another nomination? Am I allowed to make another nomination?
Is that for the chair position?
Yeah. Oh, we're still, I'm sorry, I was jumping ahead.
I think
Sorry.
Chair, okay, and then the vice chair is next. Okay, so this is just for the chair position.
Okay, so I've made my nomination for the chair. And so now I would like to make a nomination for the vice chair.
Oh, no, not until we get to that. That's the second. That's the second.
I asked you.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so. this is the
Okay,
chair,
we're really jumping
and then
ahead.
the
Okay,
second
sorry.
vice. It's okay.
I'm good with that nomination.
I don't know how this works.
Oh,
So
I can jump in and just tell you like just
Yeah.
the basics of how it should work. Okay, so
Yeah, please.
the,
This is my first-
yeah, I know.
I was just gonna keep going.
That's my
It's
first
everybody's
rodeo,
first
so
time.
please.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so so right now the floor is open for nominations for the chair. You can
Uh-huh.
nominate yourself or you can nominate somebody else.
okay.
Mary has nominated Joanne. If there's any discussion, that should happen now. And
Okay.
then Joanne can call for a vote
Okay,
on the chair.
okay,
And if we only have one person nominated, then we'll just vote yes or no.
okay.
If there's more than one person nominated for a position, then when I call on you in the roll call, you would say the name of the person you're voting for.
Okay, okay,
And we'll do first the chair and vote on that, and then the vice chair and vote on that.
okay. So is there any further discussion, or is there anybody else that wants to be nominated for just the chair position? Okay, we will now, wait. We will now hold a vote for the position of chair by roll call. When your name is called, please state the person's name you are voting for to be chairman of the board. Carol, will you please call the roll?
Okay, and this time we will start with Alfreda.
Joanne Parsons,
And Melina,
Joanne Parsons.
Gloria,
Joanne Parsons.
Arlene,
Joanne Parsons,
Joanne,
Joanne Parsons.
and Mary.
I made the nomination. Okay, Joanne Parsons.
Okay,
And
Thank you.
then, thank you. Do you have any nominations for the vice chair?
Am I on?
You're on, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I would like to nominate Alfreda Lee for the vice chair.
Press the wrong thing.
I
Are there
second
any
that.
other nominations? Alfreda Lee is one.
Also, Like, was I on?
Okay, Gloria, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I second that.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and read. Does anybody else have any different person to nominate? Okay, we will now hold a vote for the position of vice chair or, by roll call. When your name is called, please state the person's name you're voting to be chairman, to be vice chair. Okay, Carol, will you
Okay.
call the roll?
Melina,
Alfreda Lee.
Gloria,
Alfreda Lee.
Arlene,
Alfreda Lee,
Joanne,
Alfreda Lee.
Mary,
Alfreda Lee.
and Alfreda.
Alfreda Lee,
Okay.
Okay,
It's now time to receive updates from board members on activities since the last meeting. Does any board member have any update for the group? All right, we will move to the next item, which is future agenda items. Board members may provide requests for discussion items for a future agenda in accordance with the board's approved bylaws. No future discussion will be held related to topics proposed until they are posted on a future agenda in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. Does any board member want to discuss any item or for a future agenda? Thank you. We will now move on to the agenda item called question and answer session with press and public. This is an opportunity for the press and public to ask questions related to items on this agenda. Staff, is anyone present in person, online, or by phone to speak to this agenda item?
Yes, we do have one, Lisa Marie Capoletta, and I have just moved her over to panelist. So she's going to need a minute to get settled.
And she will only speak on this agenda item, what was discussed.
So the purpose of this section is for the press or the public to ask questions about this specific agenda. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Lisa, I'm sorry, Ms. Capoletta, you're muted.
I bought a coffee cup that says you're on mute. I should have it. I've got my Jesus and trust in you. Before I start, Ms. Griffith, I do not have my timer because I'm recording the meeting so we can write a story for you guys. So please cut me off when I hit 3 minutes. I will not find it rude at all. Usually I keep my own time, and some people are really rude, but you're super polite. Before I start, you guys, please pray for Ukraine. Russia just bombed the nuclear power plant in Ukraine during your meeting. So anyway, I'm a little shocked, and I was kind of on Twitter. So I'm going to start now. Good evening. My name is Lisa Marie Capoletta. I live at 1322 Belvin. I'm trying to sound chill, and I can't because I have to yell. I wanted to thank Ms. Earls for being so affirming of my speech. I appreciate that. And I want to applaud you guys. I believe you moved it to 10 days for the notification. Is that correct? Did you guys do that? Because that's pretty much standard legal par. Is that what y'all did? Perfect. I guess I just have two questions because the purview is whatever's on the agenda. Number one, would you guys consider in your rules, like you guys did with the 501c3 status, maybe that churches have to provide their IRS paperwork? Because I think that was one of the problems last time. I would just ask that you guys consider that so it's equal, because it seems like the churches get a little more wiggle room, and that's not fair either. So I would just kindly ask you. And then the other question is, I would suggest maybe you guys get the city to pay for you guys to get some Robert's Rules of Order training so that, you know, there's no question for the public. Because that was just kind of my question. I mean, I think you guys, all your hearts are in the right place. I did have some concerns, you know, but those were just my two questions. I don't know if you guys want to respond to that at all about the 501c3 status for the church, and maybe including that as part of your purview. In addition to the, like, so you guys are talking about 501c3 status. Maybe you guys can have a rubric where a church has to show their IRS paperwork so they're on fair playing field. Because a lot of people have issues with money's going to the churches because of separation of church and state.
Right. Well, how would the IRS status help? I mean, I hear what you're saying about churches. I hear what you're saying about that, but how would the...
Yes, that's a great question, Ms. Quinn. Apparently, one of the churches did not have their IRS paperwork in, and they should have had it, and it wasn't on the form. So my point is, if you're requiring nonprofits to have a 501c3 status, and if you're going to give money to a church, they should have, there's some sort of IRS paperwork. And Ms. Griffin can probably correct me, but I saw that in the article.
Some kind of tax exemption thing? Is that what you're saying?
There was, it's in one of those articles, and I could email you the response to that to explain. There was something missing from the church you guys awarded the money to, and you guys just kind of let it go, and they didn't have their paperwork. So a lot of people in town thought, well, they didn't give it to the people with the 501c3, but they gave it to the church without the IRS paperwork. There was something that they did not have. And I just feel like you guys might want to treat everybody the same, because people have an initial problem with the church getting money, and then there's a secondary level of them not having the paperwork they should have had that was on the form.
No, I hear you.
So we can do some more research into what specifically the churches have to file, just like nonprofits, and make it even.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate all y'all's hard work, and y'all have a great evening. And thank you again, Ms. Earls, for being so affirming. You guys have a great evening.
Okay, thank you. And that's right at 3 minutes anyway. So there we are. And so Joanne, back over to you.
Thank you all for your participation. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? The motion was made by.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Melena.
Well, can I ask?
And second, do I hear a second?
Well, can I interject here
Yeah.
briefly?
Okay.
Yeah, so, some of the stuff that Ms. Copoletta presented was noteworthy of discussion. Where did all that come from? To not address it at all doesn't seem right. So I was gonna say it's something for future discussion, and I think that might be something we should consider. She put a lot of information out there.
So Gloria, just to clarify, are you asking for this to be a future agenda item topic so
Yes.
that the board can discuss?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of the information she presented and frankly allegations that she presented.
Well, now, what I was specifically referring to is, do you want to discuss the paperwork that the churches will need to turn in? Like, we need to keep it a very specific topic.
No, I think what I was referring to is, and I get where she's going with that, was her initial 3-minute, this is my issue presentation. That's what I was referring to.
Well, I don't
Not-
know how we would phrase that on an agenda, so I need more specifics, like, and is it, it would need to be a topic worthy of the board to discuss, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so do you want to, we would need a very specific proposal from you on what you would like to discuss.
Specifically, some of the information she presented. And I mean, if that's not specific enough,
We have to post it on an agenda in a way that the public will know what will be discussed at the meeting.
Okay, well, maybe you can help me with this, because for it to how to word it, because to let it go unaddressed. I mean, she felt Mary gave some attention to it. I mean, for it to go unaddressed doesn't seem appropriate. And
I
had
think
no idea how to
Carol
word it.
did a good job addressing it. I think she said that we were going to research it. And I think we will, we're going to make it a discussion item for future agenda item. I think that's a good topic. Just putting it as, let's compare and contrast what the churches have to submit compared to the regular nonprofits. I mean, I like her a lot. She shows up to all the meetings. She's a
Does
little
she?
extreme, but she just tries to keep everything in check. So that's all she's trying to do. And I think that's okay. And I think that what she brought up to us, maybe the way she said it was a little accusatory, but I think what we took from it was really good. Let's talk about what the churches are submitting compared to everything else, because it should be fair. I don't think we need to go into anything else really, whatever she would like. She's going to write another article. I don't think we really need to give her more, I don't know, time than she got her 3 minutes. Let's talk about what we know, what the churches are submitting.
Right.
Okay,
I
I just
agree with
didn't
you.
want to just gloss over it, because I'm thinking,
I agree with you, Melina.
that's not going to fly.
Just
So-
discuss what paperwork the churches are to turn in and to make sure that they're turning in that paperwork, just like the regular nonprofit organizations. I think
Yeah, I mean,
that's
when
just
she
cut
came
and dry.
back, right. And when she came back, she did give more specifics about what her issue was. So, all right. That's fine with me.
Okay, and I think I understand what the topic is for the future agenda, and it will be to discuss, I'll have to phrase it up, but to discuss the
Yeah, right.
application criteria related to nonprofit paperwork, basically.
You'll
I'll have
come
to
up with
work-
the right.
I'll work on the
language.
wording. Yeah,
I'm sure you'll come up with the right language.
thank you.
Okay.
I will do that.
And so do I get a second to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
I
All against, say
Aye.
nay. We will now adjourn the meeting at 8:24 PM.